Hey yo everyone! Spooky season has officially arrived, so what better way to get into the Halloween spirit than playing some horror games? To me, horror games are the ultimate fear-inducing experience. I mean, scary movies are great, don't get me wrong, but when you play a horror game, the things you see on the screen aren't just something you're watching as some passive entity. The things you see on screen are happening to you. So today, I've compiled a list of 10 horror games that I think would be great to check out this October. I did my best to mix up the list a bit and have a nice blend of old and new, AAA hits, and indie gems. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Alright, let's get it. Alrighty, I'm still a little bit sick, so I apologize for my voice, but at number 10, let's talk about the Dead Space remake. The original Dead Space is an all-time classic that went on to inspire a couple sequels and even a few animated movies. After the third installment was received with mixed reviews, the franchise went on a bit of a hiatus, but last year in 2023, Motive Studio went on to deliver one of the best remakes we've seen in a long time. Despite adding in a few gameplay tweaks, some story switch-ups, and Isaac getting a voice actor, the remake remains largely faithful to the 2008 original. Isaac's suit has never looked better, the Ishimura nails the space horror aesthetic, and of course, the necromorphs are as terrifying as ever. If you've never played the original, the game follows a space engineer named Isaac Clarke who is stranded on an alien-infested mining ship named the Ishimura. As you fight your way through dark corridors and blood-spattered control rooms, you learn about what happened to the ship and what you need to do in order to survive. There are a plethora of weapons to choose from, and the mission variety is some of the best in its class. If you've never played Dead Space, try to avoid reading any spoilers and give the remake a shot, you won't regret it. Moving along to number 9, Still Wakes the Deep is an indie hit from earlier this year that will almost certainly get some award buzz come this December. Using one of the more unique locations I've seen for a video game, Still Wakes the Deep is set entirely on an oil rig deep in the North Sea during the 1970s. You play as a character named Kaz, who is working on the rig as an electrician before a drilling accident disturbs something sinister deep below the ocean's surface. Just like Dead Space, if you don't know anything about this game, I'd recommend going in as fresh as possible. Your goal throughout the game is to get the rig back up and running while trying to locate missing survivors of the crew. The whole experience is one of my favorites from this year, and it might have some of the best voice acting I've ever heard in an indie game. The graphics are incredible, and the lighting and design choices make everything feel so grimy and real. The game is a bit on the shorter end, maybe like 4 or 5 hours, but the devs managed to make nearly every moment memorable. Plus, I think it's still on Game Pass if you're on Xbox or PC. If you're a fan of deeply immersive atmospheric horror games, then you've got to give Still Wakes the Deep a try. Next up at number 8, I got the Outlast Trials. The first few Outlast games were pretty successful as single-player survival horror titles, but the Outlast Trials is switching up the formula by turning the franchise into a co-op multiplayer experience. Outlast Trials is essentially Outlast, but combined with a Saw movie. You and up to 3 other players must solve a series of elaborate puzzles in order to escape the asylum you are trapped in, all the while being pursued by sadistic maniacs trying to kill you. The game doesn't really feature much of a story, which is kind of disappointing come from the Outlast team since I think they're pretty good at plotting out horror narratives. To make up for it though is the fact that the co-op is excellently done, with each trial bringing its own unique twist. On top of that, the enemy AI is some of the best we've seen in a while, adding a constant dread that you and your friends could be attacked at a moment's notice if you're not careful. The only real complaint I've seen from people is that there isn't really that much replayability after you beat the main trials. This game has a ton of potential moving forward though, so maybe we can expect some new maps and trials in the future. In the meantime, if you're looking for a shorter co-op horror game, look no further than the Outlast Trials. Down to number 7, let's talk about Resident Evil 7, Biohazard. Resident Evil 7 is touted as one of the best horror games ever, and it basically brought the franchise back from the dead. For the first time, the franchise switched to a first-person point of view and really leaned into the horror elements. This did wonders for the game, as the claustrophobic setting of the Baker family's estate was amplified to the max. The plot follows Ethan Winters as he heads to what is a seemingly abandoned farm in rural Louisiana in search of his missing wife. Once there, he is kidnapped and tortured by the cannibalistic Baker family. From there, it kind of gets back into the groove of the Resident Evil formula. limited inventory space, scavenging for health and ammo, searching for specific save locations. It's got it all, man. In the game, Ethan isn't that skilled as a fighter, so combat almost feels as though it should be a last resort, and running away should take priority. The house is full of secrets needed to survive and escape the family, so memorizing hidden passageways or quick getaway points is crucial. The gameplay, environmental design, and storytelling are all top-notch here, and you don't have to be some mega fan of the series to enjoy this entry. If you really want to experience the Resident Evil franchise at some of its best, you gotta check out Biohazard. Now, number 6, I want to share some love for Pacific Drive. God, I have not played this yet, but it's been sitting in my wish list for months. If you're unfamiliar, Pacific Drive is a survival horror roguelite where you have to make your way across the Pacific Northwest with basically nothing but your old beat-up station wagon. As you travel across the country, you can stop at abandoned buildings or destroyed cars and scavenge for things that will aid you in your journey, such as gas or repair parts. Exploring the world will allow you to fill out your map and eventually start upgrading your vehicle, which is definitely needed because there are tons of external threats that are aiming to destroy both you and the car. This has got to be one of the more unique survival games I've seen out there, and the reviews have been pretty great since the game launched version 1.0 back in February. From what I've heard, the game has a surprising amount of depth to it and can be pretty difficult at times. But if driving around the PNW in a car that essentially becomes your home sounds fun to you, consider checking out Pacific Drive. Down to number 5, I want to talk about Little Nightmares. The first Little Nightmares game came out in 2017, so it is a bit older, but I think it still holds up incredibly well. In this game, your character is in this shrunk down little girl who has to navigate her way through a house full of grotesque creatures and characters. Since it's a side-scrolling platformer, you can always see your character being pursued while you try to work your way through the level, which I think really adds on to the tension. There isn't really any combat in here either, so that feeling of helplessness is always lurking in the back of your mind. But I think that also makes each escape from a close encounter that much more satisfying. The atmosphere is great, the visuals are top-notch, and the story is one truly worthy of your time. There's also a sequel that is probably just as good, as well as a third game and comic book set to release in 2025, so if you want to check out the franchise, now is as good a time as ever. Now at number 4, let's talk about a new game, kinda. The Silent Hill 2 remake. I haven't played it yet since it just came out, but the reviews are through the roof. Fans and critics alike seem to be in love with this recreation of the iconic Silent Hill 2 game, which is really saying something because there were a lot of skeptics before the game released. Remaining faithful to the original's dreary atmosphere and narrative, Bloober Team was able to recreate Silent Hill 2 while also somehow making it better in a lot of ways. Obviously, the graphics and lighting take a massive leap forward, but the modernized controls and gameplay design make for an experience that is truly terrifying. Silent Hill 2 has been described as suffocating, tense, dreadful, nerve-wracking, revolting, and straight up miserable. But not in a bad way. The horror elements are designed so well that some people are saying it's mentally and emotionally exhausting playing through the game. The story is decently long also, at about 12 to 14 hours, so you're definitely going to get your money's worth. I can't talk too much about the game since I really don't know that much other than what I've seen from others online, but don't be surprised if Silent Hill 2 gets some Game of the Year buzz. It's looking like it might be a real contender. Next up at number 3, let's talk about Content Warning. This game came out earlier this spring and has been pretty well received since its launch. The premise of the game is that you and up to 3 friends are attempting to go viral online by recording footage of monsters in this deep, dark abyss. While you're exploring the different areas, you have to try and navigate your way through the map while avoiding traps and deadly creatures that will try to kill you. Each run is limited by how much oxygen you have left, so you have to manage your time and camera battery life accordingly. As you capture more footage and go viral though, you get more money and can buy upgrades like a boomstick or a flashlight. Basically, the crazier things you record, the more views you get, and the more views allow you to get sponsorships and other upgrades. It's a ton of fun with friends, and I'm pretty sure it's less than $10 on Steam. If you're looking for a fun co-op game that is certain to produce some hilarious clips, then I'd strongly recommend playing Content Warning. Now down to number 2, let's take a look at Amnesia: The Bunker. I've never played any of the games in the series, including this one, but I've heard that it is absolutely terrifying. In the game, you are trapped in a bunker and have to navigate your way through this labyrinth in order to escape through the one single exit. While in the bunker, you'll have to solve environmental puzzles that require close attention to detail, all the while being hunted by a creature called the Beast. The beast will always be stalking you, but it can be avoided by running away or finding a light source. Unfortunately, the lights aren't the most reliable, and if you don't have a way to turn them back on or a safe spot to hide in, you are very much on your own. The game isn't super long, maybe like 6 hours or so, but if you're looking for a fun weekend adventure that is sure to give you goosebumps, then go ahead and add Amnesia: The Bunker to your backlog. And finally, at number 1, it of course has to be Alien Isolation. Praised as one of the greatest horror games ever to be developed, the team behind Alien Isolation deserve all of their flowers. Released 10 years ago in 2014, Alien Isolation follows Ripley's daughter as she is trapped in space with a lone xenomorph tracking her every move. That's really the highlight of this game. The devs created such a unique AI design for the alien that it almost feels as if it's truly alive and hunting you. It always looks as if it's thinking, methodically plotting on how to outsmart you. Whether it's investigating a room where it believes you might be or running towards the direction of a sound, the alien is constantly hunting. Even if you know you're in a different room than it, it always feels as if it's lurking just around the corner. Eventually, you can find a radar device that will show you where the alien is, but it only works when it's nearby, which can sometimes cause more terror than comfort. That tenseness, combined with some stellar audio design, such as hearing the alien climbing through vents, makes for an experience that is just absolutely dreadful, but in the best way. And with the sequel literally just being announced this week, now feels like a better time than ever to hop back into the game, especially if you've never played it. And that's my list, but I want to know what you guys think about it. Are there any games on this list that really jumped out at you? Have you played any of the games we just talked about? What other horror games would you recommend to me or really anyone else down below in the comments? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It means a lot. I appreciate you guys as always, and I'll catch you in the next one.